mount line is just about here. Once on your bike, take a pause to make sure that you've got both feet well engaged into your cleats and that everything is as it should be on the bike before you get going out onto the main road. This section has always got some cyclists who've missed something about their bike, something's dropped off, something isn't quite right, and they're all getting flustered because they haven't taken that little bit of time just at the start to make sure that everything's as they need it to be. Now it's early in the morning, and being Pembrokeshire, there's a strong chance that the road's going to be wet and therefore it's going to be slippery. This corner has taken out several athletes every single year. It's sharp and the camber is against you and you're not expecting it, and there will be a barrier in the middle of that road roughly where that car is. So we're now out onto the flat and we're speeding up. This is great, we're off onto the course, except take care. This section will be half the thickness we see here, so roughly the width of that red car and a little bit more besides, and you'll have at least two lines of cyclists, the slow ones on the left and the fast ones trying to catch up time on the right. You'll notice it sweeps left and right. There was a particularly bad crash here one year when one cyclist didn't quite see what was happening here. There's a very, very sharp bend often in the fence barricades they've got here, and one poor athlete lost their race literally at that spot there. A nice downhill, a lot of metalwork on the road, and because of the time that we'll be cycling down it, strong probability it'll be wet and there'll be a lot of vibration through the handlebars. Very easy place to lose control and stack the bike. Equally, you could end up with a lot of triathletes all trying to jockey for position, so be careful coming down here and just have your wits about you. One year I came into this bridge section too fast, carrying too much speed, and you'll notice that the road falls away from you just as you're trying to turn to the right, and that manhole on the floor. I was very, very lucky to get away with it, and my Ironman race was nearly over, less than a mile from the start. Just outside Jameson, about 7 miles into the route, is a sharp right-hander after a lovely long descent. Easy to take, just be aware of its presence. Then rolling on into the village shortly afterwards is a series of S-bends. Again, keep your wits about you, especially if there are leaves on the road and it's still wet. A lot of athletes get caught out by the S-bends there. As we ride through Lamphy, you are coming up to a choice. If you're on the second loop, we're going to turn right, but being as we're on the first loop, we're going to take a sharp left just after the hotel. Just be careful, go out to the middle line, bank over, and we're around the corner. Coming into Pembroke, mini roundabout and a sharp fall away to our left hand side. Again, being careful if it's a wet floor, because if it's first thing in the morning it's been raining. Good fast downhill with a right hand bend that sweeps around to the right, but the camber is a bit off for a cyclist, so it's very easy to lose your grip. Just make sure you scrub your speed before the corner. Once round, watch out for manholes on the floor. Again, first thing in the morning, they can be wet, unlike this lovely sunny day. And then get ready for our left-hand turn onto Daniel's Hill. It's worth noting, if you're a slower cyclist like me and you're tucked in the left hand side as the faster cyclist swoop past you, these drains on the left, they have some quite significant ramps in and out of them, and they can really disturb your rhythm as you're cycling, so be careful for them. This is a great section of road leading into Cowshed Hill. Be careful though, because the road falls away to the left as well as being a sharp bend. You can carry a lot of speed through this section, but when you get round the next corner there will be marshals warning you of a sharp bend, and again, because it's first thing in the morning, you tend to find that the road is wet and it can be very slippery. A number of athletes every year don't make this corner. So give it some respect, hit the brakes early, and then we'll be good to go. So it's this corner coming up here on Cowshed Hill. There will be marshals here, they will be flagging you down, but just bear it in mind. I've left the video run now because it's worth seeing the conditions as you do descend this section of the hill. It's a very, very fast yet quite rough section, so the handlebars will be bouncing around in your hands and it's quite hard to maintain control. So stay within your ability and take it easy, because there are small marks on the road that will dislodge a cyclist who's not paying attention. When we get to the bottom of this hill, there's a sweeping right-hander. You can carry a lot of speed around it, but you just need to make sure that you sight the corner well and you're within your ability going into the corner, so you're not trying to hit the brakes and come off. Here's the right-hander just on the junction. You can carry a lot of speed around it, just sight the corner early and swoop round. Again, every year at this first cattle grid, somebody loses a water bottle, toolkit. Just be aware, just past Marion Camp, there's a cattle grid. Mind you don't get your tyres caught in the gap between the concrete sections as you come around that right hand corner. It could cause you to skip. Another one, cattle grid. The problem with this cattle grid is it's on quite a steep hill, and again, if it's wet it's slippery, so you need to make sure you've got enough speed before you get to the cattle grid, otherwise you're trying to go over it and you're going to skid out. Into Freshwater West, watching out for the switchbacks over the bridge. On the day, the sand will have been swept by Pembs County Council, so it will be clear, but just watch out for the S-bend on the bridge. Careful on the left-hand turn here. This is at the top of Fresh West Hill. You'll have cyclists coming in the opposite direction, so you can't sweep right across that junction. You can see it's very tight here. This is why the cyclists are not allowed to overtake. There are 3 areas on Ironman Wales where you're not allowed to overtake. This is one of them. We'll cover the other 2 later. This area in particular, you'll often have cyclists going for the faster line in the centre of the road, meeting other cyclists coming down the other way. At a high rate of closure, you really do need to just tuck into the left hand side and wait for your opportunity to overtake later on in the race. Particularly on this corner coming up, it's very, very easy to meet a cyclist coming the other way and have a nasty accident. This sharp 180-degree bend is a little bit later on, about 2 miles on, just before you come into angle. Scrub all your speed off. You had a nice descent coming into it. Scrub your speed, then make the sharp 180. It does fall off down the hill, so be careful if you go in too tight to the corner. And I've left the video run now just to show what it's like underneath the trees going down, heading in towards angle itself. You need to be careful depending on the weather. We may have had a load of leaves and there could be sort of a slip risk as you ride down this section. At the end of this section is a T-junction, and it's tempting to carry too much speed, but remember you've got to somehow go try and turn right hand at this point, so don't forget to hit the brakes early, don't push your luck as we're heading on towards the feed station, so it gets a bit congested around here. This section then is having climbed out of angle. This is the other side of that tight corner I was saying about. You can see how the road temptingly opens up, so people will try and get their speed on the downhill and take the shortest line through. The trouble is the shortest line through will take you into oncoming cyclists coming up behind you. Approaching the junction on top of Fresh Wests, watch out for cyclists coming out to you from the right hand side who've been a bit slower than yourself. This is a nice new section of road by Maiden Wells, but watch out as you come around the mini roundabout. As you take the left hand side, you'll be carrying a lot of speed around here, and there are speed humps. And just after the speed hump is some metalworks on the left hand side. So again, just have your wits about you just as you take that corner. And then later on, as you're descending down Daniels Hill into Pembroke, lovely fast descent, but be cautious as you come across to where that orange van's just pulled out. Start braking and scrubbing off your speed, because you're going to have to come to a dead slow before you can take your right hand turn to head off into Pembroke. There will be marshals at this section, they will be controlling the traffic for you, but make sure you can stop just in case there are vehicles oncoming. We're now going to head off to our right, up a short hill to the mini roundabout and turn left against the normal one-way flow of traffic to a turn point which will be a cone approximately where that red van is now. You'll notice it'll be downhill when we come to it and then uphill heading back towards the roundabout. Be very careful again, we've had a nice fast section, you have to go to a dead slow to get around the cone, and again cyclists can fall over. Watch out for the curb on the left. If you're not paying attention, the road narrows and you can end up coming a cropper, and there's a similar point just a little bit further on here where it does the same. A little bit further on there's another place where the road narrows, and again if you're not paying attention you can get yourself caught out or on that metalwork, and with cyclists still coming down on the right hand side. Coming back into Lamphy, this time we're going to go straight across. Be careful, there's some road calming on the left, so you have to go around that, and then just as you come in and around the corner here you're into one of the feed stations. So whilst you're focusing on grabbing food from the right hand side on the feed station, you'll also notice that there's a speed hump on the floor. So one hand for yourself, one hand for the bike. So be careful just as you come in here, say the feed station on the right hand side and the speed hump. Be careful. This next section is the left hand turn off the Ridgeway heading on towards Redbirth. Nice fast section of road, quite tight and not a lot of space for overtaking, just somewhere to show caution. And I've left the video roll because on this road you're going to have to take a sharp right hand turn into a different lane, and this will allow people to practice where their sight lines are for where they want to start braking. As I say, a good descent, a good section of road, plenty of speed capable on here. Just be careful as you get to this section now. We're starting to get towards the right hand turn. You'll notice there's a tree starts to stick out of the hedge on the left hand side. That's a wake up call to start hitting your brakes and slow down. Ready for not one gateway, but the second turn. And then that's our right hand turn. Slow down, take the right, and power up. This next clip will have us crossing the main road. It is marshalled and you will be guided across. As you take the left hand turn to go back onto the path, watch out for raised metalworks on the floor. They can be slippery and throw you off your bike. After the short climb there's a nice descent. Again, it's tight and technical. Mind your lines coming around here. It is a closed road, but just mind your lines coming around here, because what's to say there isn't a slower cyclist tight in on the side. Again, I've left the video run on this section because it helps you understand your sight lines, where you might want to put your bike. Shortly there's a steep descent to a T-junction where we have to take a left hand turn. Again, mind your braking points. And watch out because there's a manhole cover right in the T-junction. So again, if it's wet and slippery, it can get very interesting. There's the manhole cover, painted orange. This next clip takes place at Templeton. Crowds of spectators will form around this area, and it makes for quite a sharp left-hand turn, and it comes after a very, very long, fast descent. Talking of fast descents, this one is coming into Narberth. It's a great section of road, but watch out for this left-hand bend. In one of the Ironman Waleses, a pro came off his bike a cropper here. Just as that car goes past, there's an opening on the left-hand side. The wind caught his disc, and the bike just sped out into those chevrons. So be careful as you come round, and watch out for plenty of raised metalwork. Just watch the video slowly. You'll notice they tend to be in the middle of the road, so you need to go to the left or the right hand side of them, but it's a long descent and it's easy to carry too much speed into corners and not being able to actually hold the line you want. Again, check your speed before the sharp left hand turn and prepare yourself for the almost 180 degrees at the bottom before we start going up the hill. There are some manhole covers in the road, but there's a good gap to take your line through and avoid. This next obstacle is something that's more relevant on your second lap through when you've got tired arms and you're not thinking so clearly. It's a sharp left, then a sharp right. If you're not careful, I've seen some cyclists lose control there. Just as we go through Narberth towards the feed station. At 59 miles, this sharp left-hander has a metal plate on the racing line, so be careful when you drop down and take the corner. This is the descent in towards Princess Gate. A couple of things to note about this corner. One, it's very sharp, and two, the camber in the road. If you don't take it to the right hand side of the road, the camber falls away from you. So be careful as you take the corner and then power away. We now come to the second no overtaking section. There'll be signposts to say where you're not allowed to overtake, but on this descent it's very, very technical, and a number of cyclists over the years have come a cropper coming down this section. So I'll let the video run just so you can practice your sight lines and work out where you'd place your bike going down. Depending on the time of day, the sun coming through the shade of the trees can make it very difficult to judge the corners. It's hard to see the road surface. And due to the number of fast blind corners, that's why Ironman has decided to make this a no overtaking section. A little bit later on, where the road rejoins with Ludchurch here, just be careful if you cut the corner too close, as it can become quite slippery just at that junction. A little bit further on the descent is a very, very sharp left-hander at the bottom of a steep hill, so again, brake early, take the corner well. This next T-junction will have a marshal on it, so we'll have the right of way, but be very, very careful, because as you come up here and take a sharp right-hand turn, the camber goes away, and one of our legendary athletes here came a real cropper and had a nasty injury, but being the hero that he is, he kept going despite his injuries and he completed the course. This next left-hander is into Summerhill. Again, you'll carry plenty of speed because you have a little downhill to go for. It's a very sharp left and a quite steep angle of attack on the ramp, so if it's been raining it can get very slippery. Just be careful and be aware that it's there, and if you haven't got the gears right, you can stall right out. Wiseman's Bridge. A lovely fast descent and the third and final no passing area on the course. I've left the video ride just so you can again pick your line for racing down. Only comment really would be that as you get your speed up, some of the bends you tend to float over them rather than being able to power around, so just be careful and judge your speed. After a brief trip to the seaside, it's up the joy of Wiseman's Hill. The descent from Wiseman's Hill is quite technical. Very, very fast S-bend coming up shortly. So use the gaps between the trees to make sure that it's clear. And pick your racing line. Once round the corner, scrub off speed because the road falls away from underneath you. And again, sharp left-hand turn on the descent. Just as we turn to the right, there is a manhole cover on the racing line, so just be careful. Sight it early. There you go. And you're fine. Careful coming into Saunders Foot. The junction will have marshals on it, but thanks to the steep hill and the fact that you do have right of way, you can come into this S-bend with a lot more speed than you're used to, and it's quite technical at speed. The next clip is going to be coming into Pembs itself and the mini roundabout, where we will pass to the right hand side of the normal traffic flow. Be careful when you go down here because there's a speed hump just where the cars are parked coming onto the roundabout, and it can throw your balance off. We now have a lovely fast section of road leading up to a choice whether we're going to do one lap or two. So we'll go around the sharp left hand turn and swoop our way into Pembs. As you get into Pembs itself, there's a marker to say to the right hand side to go off and do the short loop a second time, or a lane marker sending you up to the left hand side to complete the bike route. So this time we're going to go down as if we're going to go out for our second loop. So we come around a nice gentle sweeping corner, scrub some speed. There will be a lot of spectators here. It gets very, very busy, so take your time, pick your line. And then thanks to the marshals, your route will be clear, leading over the mini roundabouts, heading out towards the short loop a second time, for your second time. When you're coming in for your final time, you're tired, you're turning left up here, look out for the manhole cover on the left hand side. Again, if it's been raining, that combination of leaning over and the effort can be enough to unseat you. Coming into Pembs, remember that we'll be on the right hand side because the left hand side will be marked out for the marathon running. So we're going on the right hand side, so you've got reduced space and unfamiliar riding conditions. So watch out for street furniture coming out at you from the right hand side where the road narrows, and say hello to the firefighters. Again, you'll be coming in on past the traffic island that we're coming up to now. The space is tight, so take your time and make sure that you get in a fit state to complete the run. As you come through, because you'll have barriers, you'll have runners on the left hand side, so we'll be on the right hand side sweeping around this corner. Shortly there's a very sharp right hand turn that we talked about when we started the route in the first place. The camber is against us and we're tired and we're too busy thinking about what we're going to go and do next, so stay focused on riding the bike. Let's get into transition and then we'll work it out from there. Again, cyclists have ended their Ironman transition just from not taking this corner right. So just here, turn right, and we're on Victory Straight. One thing to bear in mind as we go along this road is just about here is where the unmount line is. You must get off your bike before you cross that line, otherwise you will be DQ'd.